Hello and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask what moves us, or more accurately, what's going to move us in future.
With the Rail Innovation Group's Johannah Liam and Liam Henderson, we look at debates, themes and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future. Hi Liam.
Hi Johannah.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I'm sitting at home because there's a tube strike today, so I didn't really want to battle with going in. I could have cycled, but then no one else is coming in because it's a tube strike. So what is it? It's the 3rd of March today. 3rd
of March. How long's the tube strike for?
Tuesday and today, Thursday. So hopefully finished by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I see there's going to be more.
Yes, I suspect there will be more. Can't make too many comments on that, I suppose. Divisive comments. I suspect there will be more.
Who knows?
It's just the timing is a little bit unfortunate because everyone was just about to getting back to a routine.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? But
yes. Oh well. So what's been happening in your world of rail over the last? What have you got to tell us? Share with us.
I haven't.
So we saw you last week, didn't we? You in London.
I was just saying I haven't really got anything to say. So obviously I was in.
That's great for a podcast.
Obviously for you, but not for people listening. We were in London last week. You are in London. I came from Scotland down to London because we went to the Rail Business Awards. And why were we at the Rail Business Awards?
We were there because One Big Circle, a member of the Rail Innovation Group, was nominated and thankfully won the Supplier of the Year award.
Congratulations to Emily and the team.
Yes. Good night had by all. Did you have a good night?
I did have a good night.
Can you remember all your night?
I can remember the night, and also I'm not going to say anything about the awful hotel I stayed at. And then the next day I went to the first Railway Industry Association parliamentary reception.
Oh, you get to hobnob with the top level
for the first time since the pandemic. So that was good fun to also again be in person and see people that I haven't seen probably since the last parliamentary reception in 2020. So that was good. But it was a bit unfortunate though that many people, including the Transport Minister, could not attend because they were debating the sad events that are happening in Ukraine at the moment at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, understandable. I just noticed for me, it was the first obviously big awards event that I'd been to for obviously 2 years. And it was just so interesting how within 20 seconds, we were discussing ideas and problems and solutions to people we knew. And just all this ad hoc, well, effectively development and network building was just happening just organically so quickly, and it's just been stymied so much over the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I guess that's just, I think it must be something to do with the way the brain works or something, because we're just programmed to find ways to do things better and to forget bad things that have happened like the last 2 years.
Yeah, I know. Never happened. It was a dream. It was all a dream.
Well, I think if we didn't move on, we would never go forward. We'd just always be psychologically scarred. So I think there must be something in the human brain that just makes us move forward.
Yeah. Right. So we are discussing today. We will go over to our interview in a second, but we met with our newest member. We recorded the interview earlier, which is why we can say it now. But we met with our newest member, which is Amygda Labs. And we had a lovely chat with Faizan Patankar. So we can hear that in a second. Any prompts for us to listen out for, Johannah?
You've put me on the spot now.
I love doing that. Tell us the key word to listen out for.
I think behaviour and language.
Behaviour and language, right. Let's go to it. So thank you for joining us today, Faizan. If you could just introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thanks so much, Liam. Hi, everyone. Faizan here, CEO and co-founder of Amygda. And Amygda is a fast-growing tech startup based out of Derby, focusing in the transport industry, right?
Brilliant. And you are our newest, most exciting member of this year. So thank you for joining the group. First of all, I was hoping to just ask, what brought you into the community?
The Rail Innovation Group and the larger rail industry itself is something that, as an engineer, I've always been interested in. Both me and my co-founder, although we spent, close to a decade in the aerospace industry, rail was the industry from a sustainability perspective, but also from what innovation was going on. As we moved into the rail industry, Rail Innovation Group was one of the communities we always looked at from outside, right? And we felt like, wow, one day, wouldn't it be nice if we became part of this community? We didn't think we had enough knowledge at the time to be part of this community. And so after, working in the industry for 12 months, speaking to, lots of engineers, young engineers in the businesses of our customers itself, we decided that we were confident enough to be part of the Rail Innovation Group. That is, honestly, for 12 months, we were looking at joining, but we just didn't have that confidence then.
Wow. Okay. That is, well, it's very nice to hear. Welcome. I'm glad that you could come to us.
I think that's an interesting insight as well, that you've come from aerospace into rail, but you didn't have the confidence to come into rail, and the fact that you didn't think you had enough experience. So why did you perceive those barriers?
Yeah, great question. And I think, a lot of those were probably, subconscious behaviors that exist, right? You get comfortable in your own industry, and then you think, different equipment and practices could be different. For example, we sometimes forget that engineering and the laws of physics and everything else, applies equally across all the different industries. And then what's changed is the practices and the behaviors that people have introduced, right? And I'm pretty sure if somebody wanted to go from rail into aerospace, they would notice this as well. But looking at rail from outside in, it appears to be this large mass of people, who are set in doing things a certain way, and is very much driven by large organizations driving things in, right? So I don't remember the last time somebody said, hey, this is the Uber of the rail industry, or there's a new startup, called Google in the rail industry, for example. You'll be surprised how many innovative projects we have seen, and we thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice in the rail industry? But then you realize that, okay, this is going to be a long engagement cycle. Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the views that.
Yes. Well, it's fascinating to hear that from the outside, as a new entrant, that those are the things you're perceiving. I could see Johannah writing notes there, so I think it's something for us to consider after it, and how we.
I'm thinking of a question for later. I don't want to sort of like upset the flow of where we're going to take our discussion today. But I want to sort of like explore that later on in our conversation about where the Google Uber of the rail industry is.
Right. Oh, it might be Amygda. So I have to ask, where does the name Amygda come from?
So Amygda comes from the word amygdala. So amygdala is a tiny part of the brain, which is at the back of your brain, really back of your head. It's a tiny piece of your brain that does the decision making and helps us as, not as humans, but generally as amphibians, right? So this is one part of the brain that's in humans, in animals, and other things, that actually helps you realize, what decision should I make? If you touched a pot of milk, the next time you go near it, the way you realize that this is going to be, not a nice feeling, is because amygdala is sending that pulse, saying the last time you were around here, it
And so presumably your solution was your solution inspired that, or was the solution inspired by your knowledge of, sounds like biology quite well, or did you go around hunting for a precise way of describing what your solution is?
Yeah, this is, I guess, the fun part of being in a startup, right? So once you once you figure out the problem you want to solve, the next two things you're doing is finding the right name and then the domain name for it. So I won't lie, we did spend 5 hours at the start of setting up Amygda as to what name we should have, and then realized that there were people who've already taken a lot of the good names. Yeah, we settled on Amygda because we wanted something that helps people just get the idea of decision making. I think 1 out of 10 people actually get it straight away.
So give us a flavor of what you actually have been working on and what you're offering.
Yeah, so Amygda is a data observability platform, right? What that really means is we're focusing on decision support for the rail and aerospace industry, who own and operate quite expensive machines, right? But they haven't been operated to the level that we think is efficient. So, for example, what we notice narrowing it down to the rail industry itself is that there's a huge industry of lessors who own a lot of stock, and have a lot of data that they receive, but aren't really extracting much value from that data itself, right? And then even imagine when delays happen due to engine breakdowns or the whole delay minute criteria that's set, that's pretty disruptive for customers, right? Now, any machine that is sending data, you could actually forecast what's going to happen with this machine. Well, the challenge is that mostly these projects are being driven by OEMs, right? Now, imagine you're a customer, a rail train operator. You actually own equipment from multiple different OEMs. So what do? Do you log into 12, 15, 20 different platforms to find what's happening with your operations? No. So what Amygda is helping do is bringing the data from different equipment, irrespective of where it's generated, and then apply machine learning algorithms that build patterns to say, hey, last time this pattern was seen, it led to some specific maintenance. And then what we do is essentially look at that data or observe that data continuously to find next time that this pattern is seen. Let's send fleet engineers and maintenance teams the specific advice that they need to go do some relevant maintenance. What we're hoping is that the rail industry, as other industries as well, right, transition away from time-based maintenance, which is embedding your resources to go do maintenance simply because when the train was bought 15 years ago said you should do it this way. Well, why are we still following what happened 15 years ago? And what the pandemic did is constrain the amount of resources that could be utilized in a specific period. So that also helped people realize that actually, when there are constraints, maintenance can get smarter. And that's what we're bringing into the rail industry itself.
So you presumably had this solution up and running in the aviation industry. And then I'm gesticulating, but none of the listeners will be able to see that I'm gesticulating. But you had it up in the aviation industry, and then you looked across into the rail sector. But were you aware of any competitors in rail before you came into rail?
Yeah, that's right. So we were set up in the aviation industry, and even in the aviation industry, there are OEMs who offer these services, right? So when we started exploring with other industries, rail really stood out, and I think rail stood out for a couple of reasons. One is even when I say even, this is looking at 2019, right, and early 2020, just before the lockdown started. Yep. We noticed that there was a lot of digitalization ahead. There was a lot of digitalization which lied in front of rail. It wasn't completely digitalized or digitized when it comes to infrastructure and other things. We also noticed that, although rail was doing pretty well on the sustainability element, when it comes to freight and power consumptions and things like that, that in comparison to aerospace was good because that's the benchmark we were looking at. But then we were also engaging with the freight industry in road-based freight, right? And the innovations that are going on there when we think about the autonomous pickup vans and delivery vans that are being worked on, when we think about the electrification element in there, we notice that in this decade, there will become a point where the freight industry is way more sustainable than aviation and the rail industry again, from those perspectives. So we thought, okay, well, how might we be able to help the rail industry get better at, reducing their costs? It just so happens that the whole rail review was going on and there was a lot more focus on customer experience. You would not believe this, Liam, but when we speak to investors in the city, right? For them, it's like it's normal that there are delays in the rail industry. They wouldn't even fund projects to reduce delays because they feel that's a behavior that's embedded. And we explicitly didn't agree with that.
Right.
So
I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's an embedded behavior. Just seems,
I don't think
it's an interesting. It's just quite interesting to hear this all from people who are new to the industry.
I would disagree with your thoughts on that, Liam.
I don't think it's a behavior. I just think it's a.
No, but I think it's. I'm going to sort of like interrupt flow there because I think the whole target measurement system does embed delays into the system, because if your target is 94% on time, then that's all you're going to focus on, is being on time 94%. Whereas if your target was 100%, as it would be in, say, Japan, then that's what you focus your effort on. So because basically I think from a policy point of view, we can't afford a railway that delivers 100% on time because it costs too much to achieve it. So now I'm going to bring it back to the conversation and the product, because presumably a product like this could help achieve 100% on time and make it more affordable.
Yes, I mean that's the aim, right? And if we didn't set out to do that, Johannah, we would be lying to ourselves, that we're just here for incremental improvements. We're really here to say, well, what would it take to get to that, near 100%? Just a point on stats, right? Because this point comes up in a lot of different industries as well. When it comes to safety, right? People want things to be safe to 99.9% or 99.7%. If you say, actually, we want things to be as safe as 99%, we're talking about, hundreds more lives lost in accidents. That's the difference between 99.7 and 99%. But when it comes to anything apart from safety, people just deprioritize, customer experience, they deprioritize punctuality, they deprioritize reliability. So I think the question of cost is interesting and relevant. But if we bring it back to saying, at some point, a lot of these delays, if you don't get to the root cause, could lead to safety issues. And then suddenly you realize that actually 94%, we're talking about thousands of, lives being affected. So yeah, there you go. I think that's always my argument when people say, oh, 95% accuracy is great. Well, then why is 95% safety not great?
It is, because it's actually quite mind-blowing, really, to think of that because that's why I disagreed with you, Liam, saying that it's not behaviour, and the fact that we have, since privatisation baked in this, it's acceptable to have this 5% failure rate. And one of the reasons why I said that was because I can't remember what the exact percentage was, but it was when I was working on the Greater Anglia franchise bidding process, and we did a focus group with some people that did not use rail, and we were exploring why they didn't use rail. And one of the data sets that we showed them was the performance measures for the Anglia franchise, which I think at the time was around about 80%, which is pretty low anyway. And it's always sort of like, put as something, as being something positive. And somebody very clearly articulated, said, yeah, but 1 in 5 trains are late. And I think that's, and that was somebody who doesn't, who chose not to travel to rail. And I think that's, you have to almost turn things around. And I think that's almost the problem with rail is, and I think bringing back to your first point about almost it feeling like a closed shop, that you didn't have enough experience, is that maybe we don't look outside of rail enough at other through other lenses to actually look at what the problems are and how they can be solved. So I think it's refreshing to hear a different viewpoint from that point of view.
Great, I agree.
So,
I mean, if our membership is not up for review after this call, I'll consider ourselves lucky. My colleague Arlen will not be happy, if after all this, look, I'm gonna review this.
No, we like to challenge. We want to hear those challenge. So I had a question of, so you have been, how long have you actively been working in rail then? 12 months?
Yes,
and
12 months, yeah.
How have you found your engagement with the industry?
Yeah, it's been pretty good, right? We're engaged with the rail lessor and a large contractor as well. I think because ultimately the industry is driven by people, and the behaviors of people itself have been pretty cool. Honestly, pretty good to experience. When we started, there was in the rail industry a little bit of friction about, hey, you guys don't understand rail, etc., etc. But as we kept talking more and more, I think we came to the realization that we started engaging in rail in the middle of a pandemic. People had a lot of other things on their heads as well at the time. It wasn't the cleanest period, to be honest, to talk to somebody you've never ever spoken to and then think about future. We can't ignore that fact. But it's been great. We are finding so much more about what's to come. When we think about the reviews and things, everything looks positive. If those things happen, hopefully will help do some of those things. But even without us, any project that helps deliver on those things, Liam, it's going to be pretty exciting. And then when you add in all of the work that's happening around, converting the assets into electrification, one of the things about not just people, but also, as you guys did the initiative of, parcels as people.
Parcels as passengers.
Yes, parcels as parcels as people sounds very
maybe we've missed something there.
No, that's very sinister. But yeah, parcels as passengers. Then when we think about, autonomy will touch this industry as well, right? In those directions, everything is pointing in a very good direction. Now it comes down to, can we as members, right, and as stakeholders deliver on those things?
Right. So I was going to ask, to help further engagement, have you had to change approach as you've learned more about engaging with rail? Have you sort of thought about different ways of quantifying the benefit of using a decision support tool, or have you had to explain it in a different way because you're speaking to a rail client, not a aviation client?
So when we started, we decided to mold ourselves in the rail industry, right? Explain, as you can imagine, first thing was we had to learn the language itself. People underestimate, how much effect language has in different things. Questions like, in the rail, you don't need to be as safe as aerospace. I actually heard this from somebody. Thankfully, we don't work with them as a customer. Wow. Yeah, I don't even regret not working with them as a customer, but rail doesn't need to be as safe as aerospace. And it's like, well, as an engineer, forget the fact that I'm a business owner, but as an engineer, I would give up if I ever heard that thing.
But also as a passenger.
Yeah, Yeah, as a passenger as well. But this is very core to engineering, right? You need to make things as safe as possible, and that's a dereliction of your duty. So, when we encountered those attitudes, we had a dilemma. Is it that we are being just too safe? Do we not understand that maybe things just fail and it's okay, and that behavior is cool? And we tried to be a bit open about taking those things on board, and then pretty much shut that down. We realized that we exist because we believe in certain values. We believe in the safety element. We believe in making use of your data, but in a very safe manner. So we went back to our roots. So now when we are validating in the rail, it's taking time with our customers to help them understand, this is why we do things a certain way. But we are making inroads. So slow, but that's for no fault of anyone apart from this is new in some instances.
Yeah. Wow.
I think it's interesting you mentioned about your values. I mean, and your must be something to do with your personal values and your business values. I mean, how are you finding sort of like the values of the rail industry and how that conflicts against your own? Because you say sort of like you're making inroads, but are you finding a lot of conflict, or are you finding that the clients that you're working with, you're taking them on that journey as well, and you're opening their eyes to the possibilities?
The clients we're working with, we're definitely on a journey and together. There are elements, Johannah, that we've had to learn as well, right, as a business. But ultimately, we've come to the realization that things that we know we're good at, we'll bring people on that journey to help them understand. Where we need to strengthen, we will. So, we are dealing with not just clients, but also, folks who spend that time in the rail industry and now have maybe, say either retired or are doing other things, to understand where the industry is coming from, right? Where some of these things are happening. When we think we clash against somebody where there is an element of our values don't align, we try not to take that further, because we fundamentally believe, if you look at all the members of the Rail Innovation Group, right, nobody is there because they want to have status quo. Everyone is there to challenge and do things differently, because we believe that there's a different way of doing things. So yeah, I think we just have to take the people who are ready to change on board, and those who aren't, some of them it'll take time.
Yes. That's
so
interesting.
Are you starting to see any benefits, both to yourselves in terms of that approach, but also in terms of benefits that are being delivered to the rail industry as a result of your product?
I think our customers would probably be the best people to ask that question. But from our perspective, yes, we are definitely getting positive feedback. Tangibly, you can see the results. Previously, what couldn't be forecasted, or previously where there were delay minutes, due to a train, although that delay minute, functionality in the future might look different. The idea is, what disruption was happening before can in the future be prevented, right, by better forecasting. And this is done by utilizing historical data and almost simulating it to say, if this was a real scenario now, what would happen with the maintenance teams? And what we're finding, in one case, more than 60% of the disruption can be reduced. Right now, that's a tangible benefit that we are looking forward to how things change, and that's embedded. Imagine if people didn't sell trains. Imagine if people didn't, say, yeah, I'm going to pay X for this train each month, but rather did what aerospace companies do, saying, I'll only pay you for the time that I utilize this train. Now, suddenly the incentive is to make sure that the trains have pretty good availability, maintenance is done to a pretty high quality, so things like repeat breakdowns don't happen, right? And there's a lot more integration within the rail industry itself. So I won't I won't shy away from the fact that incentives have to be looked at, as to what's the key thing, because we can't continue. Well, we believe that rail industry can't continuously keep having, new fleets coming into service. And what do you do with the equipment that is still has remaining useful life? But because it's 5 years old, we're going to scrap it. Well, so we want to be green, and then we are taking perfectly good equipment and then checking it out. It doesn't add up.
So what would you do then? What would be your answer to those questions?
Yeah, so I think it's a two-phase answer, right? One is, retrofitting has to happen. In aerospace, equipment goes on for 35 years, and some of it has been going on for even longer. The reason that they move to new equipment is fuel efficiency, right? And making that improvements. When we think about rail, this fascination with changing fleets every 5 years is it's very curious.
Yeah, it's quite a recent phenomena, changing fleets all the time, because I'm in North Scotland, so if you think until recently, the high-speed trains would have been one of the most frequent types of stock to have used, and they would have been in use for what, 45 years, and they've now all been replaced by the Hitachi Azuma trains, or some other cascaded stock. But I think they probably could have gone on for another 40 years, but I think maybe it's because customers have wanted to see newer rolling stock. I don't, because we talked about not rolling stock, customer experience at the beginning of it, and I think maybe there is a perception of better quality if you have new. I don't know, and then
safer.
Safe. I wouldn't have said that the high-speed train fleet was unsafe. I think it had quite a good record. I think it had quite a good reliability record. I think if you look at the passenger experience, some people talk about the comfort of seats nowadays, and I think older trains certainly had more comfortable seats, I think, but they didn't necessarily come up, because I think the answer to sort of like the comfort of seats always comes up against the safety question, because they comply to a higher standard of crash worthiness or fire safety standards and things now, because the standards are different. But I think also financing is different now, and I think bringing back to your earlier comment about people in the city and their perception of behaviour. I think financing of new rolling stock has become easier than older rolling stock. So and that again comes back to your incentives, for what you put in the contracts and things.
But I guess it's a related point in that a new train is more predictable, and so if you're lending money on it, it's an easier to understand risk than trying to maintain an older stock. It would appear that that's the train of thought, right? I'm going to say something which, if it might not be the most popular opinion. Every time you introduce a new product into the market, for the first 18 months, there'll be more failures on that product than a product that's already working for 5 years, for example. Because in engineering terms, you have the bathtub curve, right? At the start of the journey life of a product, there's a lot of failures, then it stabilizes because you iron out those issues as it's running in service. Things don't need to be maintained as long as they are maintained. Nobody will accept this, and I don't know why, but there's an issue of over maintenance. When you have a perfectly working asset, train, rolling stock, equipment, signal, track, anything, we have this habit from the OEMs that say every 2 weeks or every 30 days, go and do some maintenance. But what do you think happens to an equipment when you constantly go touch it and fiddle with it? When it's built by machines that have a tolerance of less than 1%. So we destroy that when we as humans go and touch those things, often in the pressure of timescales to say, actually, within 4 hours, I need to turn this thing around.
what do you think happens? You destroy the very quality that it's built with. So, you know, this degradation within 5 years of equipment would not be there, you know, and that safety profile would not reduce if OEMs didn't force companies to go and constantly do the maintenance. This isn't a rail issue, by the way. This happens across everything.
Yeah. You see, that's
Interesting.
it is interesting because of course, yeah, it comes back to incentives and flows and things like that, isn't it? Because particularly if you look at rolling stock and recent rolling stock procurement, because much of it has been run out of government. So, you know, the procurement is run out of government. They want to be assured on risk and availability, and then it's passed off onto a contract to a franchise operator if we're focusing on rolling stock. So that's that's how you measure it, because we're obsessed with the targets and the incentives and everything. So you can't in a contract, it makes it very difficult to say you maintain it when it needs maintaining. Whereas it's a lot easier to put in, well, when it's done 50,000 miles, you do this type of maintenance. So there's a mixture there of government policy in terms of how they specify contracts or procurements, and also historical rail knowledge, because that's probably how we did it under the Victorian era or something. So I'd be interested, how would you move that debate along? And and I kind of want to bring it back to that original question or that original point that you raised about where are the Googles and the Ubers of the rail industry, because this sounds ripe for that, doesn't it, to challenge this type of activity. If fiddling by humans makes performance worse, shouldn't we be moving that dial?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to these things, right? We are, you know, as Amygda, we believe two things are likely to happen, and as any startup, that's what we do, right? We take these we try to super forecast what's likely to happen. One is, there might be new entrants who enter the market with a availability as a service business model, right? Which says, actually, you know, we are being paid for the availability of a train, i.e. that asset is available for you to transport goods or people. And the whole insurance, maintenance, and operational costs are embedded within one single cost, right? The cost savings there is, if you can predict and if you can monitor the health of your asset, you reduce your insurance costs because you actually know the risk that you're carrying much better. So you didn't need to do, you know, a lot of overpayments. It's kind of what Vitality, for example, did with, you know, personal health insurance, right? It's saying, hey, we'll give you personal health insurance, but you need to, you know, you get an Apple Watch as well with it. So we can see how that profile is changing. I do believe that, you know, there will be folks who, with enough financing, could actually enter the market in a way to say, we'll buy the trains and we'll work it on a availability as a service business model, you know, and then nobody cares about digitalization except the company that is underwriting the risk. The second thing is, you know, there already are leasing companies that exist today that could potentially try to change their business models, right? To say, hey, we might take ownership of the maintenance aspect. We might take ownership of, you know, making trains available, for example, and they have a huge benefit over OEMs because they have equipment from many different OEMs, right? If you are one particular OEM, you can predict what's going to happen with your machines, with your trains. As soon as you go across a train operating company or a rail leasing company, you have trains from 2-3 different suppliers, right? So you actually have more data than the manufacturer itself. So you can disrupt it. I mean, the players who can disrupt it are there. I think what needs to be there is a little bit more confidence around that the digital technologies exist and there are companies who can help them do it. So, you know, Amazon, Google, and the likes, they build themselves, but then they also help bring the platform to different companies who could try and go, build on top of.
Yeah.
I think that's what Amygda is trying to do. We're not coming in saying we know rail industry better than anyone. We're saying we know our digital tech and how that can be utilized in engineering domain very, very well. Who are the stakeholders who want to experiment, and innovate with the business model?
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. It's the point of, but you also you basically need a first mover to sort of shift that to that model. Because at the moment, obviously, things are more stuck in a traditional way of doing contracting and the way we split up the industry. So if you were going to have a company that does that, the company needs to come on and take a lot of risk up front to do that. And obviously, therefore, they need to be have big pockets.
Yes, and this is where companies like Amygda and others could have some advantage, because we don't have that luggage or any barriers to not experiment, right? So, for example, one of the things we're trying is we are in discussions with insurance companies, right, to say what is the effect of good analytics and digitalization of assets in the reinsurance market. Could we build a product which is not an analytics product? Behind the scenes, it's analytics, but on the face of it is an insurance product, which means when companies buy Amygda system, they get the peace of mind that the trains will be well maintained. So you see what you're doing is you're kind of shifting the risk that if it isn't, then there's a payout, right?
Yeah.
And you think, well, how is a tiny company like Amygda ever going to do that? Well, the point is we don't need to do it on ourselves. We can build an ecosystem of partners around us, including insurance companies, where if we can prove out that forecasting can be done better, if we can prove out that between the train operator and Amygda and a maintenance partner, things can be joined up and the information flow is good, then the insurance company will back it.
Yeah.
So these experiments are coming. We're definitely bringing them in to the rail industry, but it's these small things which will ultimately lead to that big disruption. I don't think we will come in with saying, actually we've got $2 billion in backing to change the industry.
Yeah.
That's in fact the defense of the industry right now, that to disrupt this industry, you need a huge amount of financial backing.
Yes, so it's a very, very big barrier to change.
Yeah.
That is very well. Basically, thank you for coming and challenging the rail industry and bringing a new insight into it. I wanted to ask, well, maybe finish off by asking, what is your request of the industry that you've come into now?
So I think the request is, thanks for taking Amygda on board. There are many more companies like Amygda who are waiting to enter the industry. I think communities like the Rail Innovation Group, but also the rest of the operators, OEMs and the government as well, since they are a key stakeholder in this, have to think about ways of not just saying, we need to work with SMEs, but have some concrete plans, programs, and almost a corridor to say, this is where the entrants can come in. The government has already done this with banking, right? The whole open banking system, the ability to have the sandpit to try things out. These have been made available, and you can see yourself, the amazing things within 10 years that have happened in the banking industry. And UK has kind of leapfrogged Europe and US in that. We now have the chance to do that with rail. So yeah, let's be aggressive, push, push, push.
Brilliant. All right, Faizan, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to working with Amygda going forward at our next events.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really thought-provoking. Thank you. I thought probably that's one of the most interesting podcasts I've done for a long time.
Dramatic pause in there.
No, because I've written down so many notes as we were talking about. I mean, notwithstanding the where is the Uber Google of the rail industry? Because I think it's always an interesting question, that one, because and particularly because we have this theme of safety as well, is and the conclusion at the end about banking has already done this, and one of the things that struck me as you say that, and almost like the I don't want to use the word arrogance, but arrogance of the rail industry, that you'll always get that answer, but banking won't kill people. And I was kind of thinking this, as we were talking about this, and I kind of thought, yes, but we don't see banking kill people. It might do, we just don't see it. So that kind of struck me. But then I also, following on from that, just the whole thing about values and behavior and language. I just thought how interesting that is to a new entrant, and how these can act as barriers to innovation, not just to new companies coming in, but to some of the older, more established companies innovating.
Yes, I particularly thought, yes, we pretty much just bluntly said that he had to learn the language to start dealing with rail clients and other rail industry people. So I thought that was interesting. And then I thought particularly the whole thing about maintenance and reliability, in terms of how comes we accept 95% performance, but we don't accept 95% safety. So obviously it's a mindset that, well, I'm sure it's a balance based on a lot of different factors, but just being challenged as to how comes you accept that particular random statistic of reliability is worth thinking about.
But that is worth thinking about, because also I think between different industries as well, because whilst aerospace and rail may be different, in terms of safety, both would say that it is unacceptable to have any safety incidents that would put people at risk.
Yeah. Yet
if you were to say compare highways, because maybe there's something, because we're all individually in control of vehicles and things, is we find acceptable that I don't know what the latest figures are, 1,700 people a year die on roads approximately, but we find that's an acceptable figure. But could you imagine if we killed 1,700 people a year on rail?
Well, it'd be a much higher proportion because there's much fewer people using rail.
But it would certainly be a crisis, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It's just it's perceptions, isn't it?
So language and behaviour are really important elements, aren't they?
Yes. And finally, yes, very encouraging for being a member of the Rail Innovation Group. Particularly, also, I would like to draw the link to when I was asking Faizan at the end about how they were succeeding and how they're engaging with rail, he mentioned an ecosystem of partners. Partnerships. Building a network, the way to go.
Network. I also like the idea of maybe working with the Department of Transport to produce a corridor and to get more innovation into rail.
Yes, I hate to say that I think that's been tried many, many times, but at least we're the front door. We're the front door that you can ring the doorbell and we'll at least allow you a foot in the door before you then work out which rooms you're going to go into. So talking of networking, what events have we got coming up?
Next week, the 9th of March, we are with Solverboard, and we're going to be looking at their innovation product, and we're going to be having a little play in a webinar, in a little munch and learn.
In a webinar. And I get to do the fun one, because the next networking meetup / social is on the 16th of March. So that'll be in London for anyone who's around.
And who's coming to that?
Everyone. Be there or be circular. I'll be there making my wonderful puns. Will you be there?
I won't. I have to stay in Scotland and nurse the recovery of my husband.
Oh, and are you going to be joining us? The 22nd of March, the Innovation in Rail Conference. In your calendar?
What calendar?
Yes, definitely you'll be there.
22nd. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you're obviously not in the cool kids.
No, I'm
Anyway.
obviously not in the cool kids. I'm in the grown-up kids.
Let's sign off before we descend into more strange playground. Right. Good to see you again, and we'll chat soon.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Until next time.